Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, monomoli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so honored that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Adrian Gonzalez. He's here to celebrate Unexplainable Adventures, the Power of Influence. It's a very, very powerful conversation. We also talk a little bit about Adrian's personal connection with the invasion of Ukraine. Before we invite Adrian into the studio, we want to send a big thank you. I just had the wonderful experience as part of March Read Across America to read my story, Love That I Matter to You, to Mrs. Wilborn's kindergarten class down in South Carolina. What a wonderful group of students. So many big smiles. We read Love That I Matter to You. We did some magic for them. They had a great time. I had a great time as well. So thank you so much, Ms. Wilborn, for finding me on Instagram at Reading With Your Kids. If you would love to have me read to your class or your group of homeschooling kids, please find me. You can find us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram. That's how Mrs. Wilborn found me. At Jedley Magic on Twitter. And, of course, you can go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. We have a very handy-dandy contact button at the top of the page. You can use that to send us a message. Looking forward to seeing all of you and your kids in the near future. Joining us right now from beautiful Miami in the state of Florida. Our guest today is here to celebrate a middle grade novel that I think is going to be pretty important for families to check out. It's called Unexplainable Adventures, The Power of Influence. Please welcome to the show, Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian, hey, how are you?
I am doing amazing, Jed. Thank you for that introduction. It was killer.
I'm happy to have you on. Tell us about Unexplainable Adventures, please.
Yeah, so Unexplainable Adventures is an interesting concept, I believe, because what it does is you take a fictional story with action, adventure, and superpowers, and what we did was we combined it with self-improvement principles that we think would be really helpful for kids to, learn at an early age.
Yeah. And so it sounds like a self-improvement book that kids would actually read.
That's exactly it. So, a little bit of history. I'm a big reader and I like a lot of self-improvement books, obviously. And, I have two younger siblings. One's 14 and the other one just turned 17. And I would try to give them books. Like my favorite book is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever tried to give a 14-year-old, or they were actually 12 and 15. Mm-hmm. If you try to get kids that age to read that kind of book, it just doesn't work out. So I started just scouring the internet, trying to find something like that was created for kids, geared to kids, and there wasn't really a lot. So I decided to come up with my own, with my partner, Danny Vega.
Yeah. I've never tried to give a book like that to a kid. I've tried to share a lot of wisdom that comes from books like that with kids, and had varying degrees of success, mostly not success.
Yeah.
Because kids, we've talked a lot here in the show, being lectured to, giving advice, kids like in one ear, out the other. But if you can hook a kid mm-hmm. with a story, get a kid to buy into a story, to become fascinated with a character, mm-hmm. they're all there.
Yep. Yeah, so it's interesting because it is hard to get my brother to read books, even mine. It is hard, but what I've noticed is once at least he starts reading it, and he has ADD, it's like a ton of kids, so it's hard to really keep him entertained with something. he has to be moved around. But what I've noticed, because I watch him read, we read it together, is that he just sits there and he actually reads, and he has to read, one section at a time, and he'll do it sometimes the whole chapter. And I think it's pretty cool to just see that happen, especially with him, because if we're able to keep his attention, that means that it's doing its job, I believe.
Yeah. And I like that you said that you're reading it with him, because there are a lot of kids out there who are what are labeled reluctant readers for a variety of different topics, and just getting them to sit down to read a book, especially when there's so many distractions, these devices that are so flashy and fast and really can grab the attention. One way to get your reluctant readers to read is to go back to what you did when they were 4 and 5, 6 years old. Sit down and read it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Because even though they might be 12 and their words are saying, "I hate you, you're driving me crazy, you're ruining my life," they still look up to you, and you are still, whether you're the dad, the mom, the big brother, the big sibling, you are the most important person in their life, and they love and they need your attention and your respect. And a great way to just show them that they are special to you is to sit down and say, "Hey, I am taking 20 minutes, and it's you. The phone is off. No one's going to call me. I'm here with you."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, just reading in general, whether you're a child or an adult, for me personally, every time I read a book, I feel like I achieve a new level of something. Mm-hmm. But I didn't even start reading until, believe it or not, like actually enjoying reading outside of school until I was in my sophomore or junior year of university. And that's when I first picked up my first, hobby book. Mm-hmm. Let's call it a hobby book. But yeah, it's hard to get people to read, but I feel like if you do, or when you start reading, it's really going to open up your perspective on a lot of things, and it's going to teach you a lot of things. So yeah, getting kids to read at an early age and something that's going to, have an impact on them, I think is just really, really important. Yes.
Yeah. I was really intrigued by your title and also your subtitle, The Power of Influence. And I think that is one of the things that we need to start talking to our kids about. And I think this book is a great way to do that. There are a lot of people out there trying to influence us. And in fact, a lot of them are called influencers. They're just, it's out there. And I think we have to have a conversation with our kids about that, because we are influenced, and a lot of times we don't realize that we're being influenced, and you can also say being manipulated and led and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about that and how parents may be able to use Unexplained Adventures to jump into that topic?
Yeah, so there's a really popular book. My favorite one is called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and we took some of our favorite principles from that book and adapted them into ours. And it really teaches kids on how to communicate, how to treat others, how to become better listeners. But I think that by learning about these principles, you'd also be able to see how other people, big brands, big names, flashy ads, how they may be using some of these things on you in a way that may not be beneficial. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually remember the first time I was kind of really aware and just felt skeevy about it, of when someone was trying to influence me. And I was looking, I married my beautiful wife, and we're looking for a second vehicle, and I had never bought a new car before. Every car I had owned before that was, can I give you a couple bucks and I can push it off your property, try to get it to run. But no, I was going to become a dad, and so we had to be responsible, get a car, and we're in the car dealership, and the salesman's showing me this, and at one point he said, you deserve a nice car like this. And I go, dude, you have no idea who I am. I don't trust you even a little. go away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that point I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of things going on in life that I don't even notice. What are some of those principles that you're teaching in Unexplainable Adventures?
I think there's a ton, but I think one of the most important ones is just paying attention, just listening to people. A lot of people we hear, but we don't listen. So if I feel like listening might be a superpower on its own, because if you're able to listen to somebody, to their thoughts, to, whatever it is that they're saying, it gives you a better ability to connect with them, right? And they also like it. If I'm having a conversation with you, Jed, and, you're telling me about the story about when you went to go purchase your first car and how the salesman tried to, start initiating that little sales process to get you into a more expensive car. Now I can dive deeper into that conversation with you, which is going to make you feel that I'm actually paying attention. And I can get to know you better. So I can ask you, what happened? Did you end up getting a newer car? How did that make you feel? Was it the right decision, etc.?
Yeah.
And I think, what's another good one? I think showing genuine interest in people is really important. Using somebody's name, remembering it. How many times have you met somebody, whether it be on the street or maybe it just be, a coworker that you used to work with and they started new and you just don't remember their name? So one important thing, and the sweetest sound to anybody's own ears, is the sound of their own name. So if you could just remember something as little as their name, I mean, that will make them like you a little bit more because, again, you're just interested in them.
I love that message to kids. One of the things that I noticed when my kids were in middle school, especially my son, and I would be driving, I didn't buy a car from that dealer.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting the minivan, and I've had 7 minivans since that time. But with the minivan, that was my superpower, because I would pick up the kids and drive them, and their friends would be in the van, and I would hear what was going on at their school, and that was incredible. But I noticed a lot of times the kids weren't talking to each other. They were just waiting for their turn to talk. And they could be talking about 2 different things. One of them is talking about baseball, and then the other one is talking about ice cream, and they're just waiting. It's like, oh, you took a breath, time for me to talk about ice cream. I take a breath, going back to baseball. There's no listening there at all.
Yeah, I agree. And that's difficult. And it kind of, it gives the other, and a lot of us do this, just accidentally, right? Because it's what we learn when we're little. We're excited. We just got a new RC car. We just got a new bicycle. We want to talk about a new bicycle. But, a lot of people, there's a saying, what is the saying? A person cares more about their toothache than all of the famine in Asia. Right. So I think that's important. So when you're having conversations with other people, if you're just talking about yourself, oh, I did this. Oh, I got this. Oh, I can't wait to do this. And you're not giving an opportunity for the other person to share what they're excited about. And even when they do, you just completely ignore it. It's just not good. Mm-hmm. And then there was something I missed. I think another really good principle is arguing. So arguing, there's no winner in an argument, right? Because if you win an argument, now the person that you beat is going to resent you, right? They're going to like, oh, Adrian beat me in this argument. Next time we have a debate or an argument, I'm going to beat him, right? So it generates resentment. And if you lose an argument, now you're the one that's going to be angry at the other person. So I think another good point is, or another good principle is kind of how to handle confrontation and the importance of, not arguing and finding ways that you can, I lost my thought process. Not arguing, right?
Right. Finding ways to compromise, come together, to work together on a solution that's either that you both love or that you both hate, but you can both live with.
Fine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. I think that's a really important point. Anybody who's spent more than 5 or 10 minutes on social media knows that arguing is absolutely useless.
Yeah, but I think what's even more interesting about that is I work in marketing and advertising, so I know a lot about how that kind of stuff works. What's really, I think, bizarre is that social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, the more controversial, or the more pain points that you can target that get people to argue with each other, the more attention and the farther that, let's call it a post, goes, which is kind of bananas.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It points out that, one, this is social media, the algorithms are pushing that stuff because they understand that we're more apt to respond to something that makes us angry. That's crazy. We're, as human beings, we're kind of messed up in that way.
Yeah, and I don't know much about history, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a behavioral expert, but, I don't think that that's a normal thing. And obviously social media just kind of popped up maybe a decade ago or so. But I don't think that we're meant to interact with each other that way. And right now is a really interesting time because we've had social media for some time, and now we're more and more able to see what it's causing, which is all this conflict that's at the end of the day driving us apart instead of getting us closer together, which was intentional, which was, the point of social media, to bring people together no matter what part of the world they're situated.
Yeah. And we are living in this amazing time if we can help our kids understand how the media that we're consuming is, how powerful it is, how it can influence us, how it can manipulate us. And if we can help our kids learn how to discern that and learn how to use this technology in a positive way, a way that helps them grow. I mean, here, you and I, we're 2,000 miles apart from each other, and we're able to speak in real time, look at each other. It's amazing. When I was your age, this was unheard of. To call Miami from Boston, it cost a lot of money.
I remember I would see it in movies when I was younger, and it'd be like a telegram or like, Austin Powers had it when Dr. Evil would, threaten the White House. And I was like, I don't know if that could ever happen. Yeah, here we are. But exactly what you said, Jed, it's teaching them, because I don't think it's going anywhere, social media, but if we could teach the kids how to use it for something good instead of something bad, I think that's the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to your point about arguing, and instead of trying to win an argument, finding ways to work together to come to a mutually satisfying resolution of the argument or the debate or whatnot, that is so helpful. And I mean, we're seeing it played out right now in Ukraine with the Russians. And, there's a lot of speculation that this is, that the reason that the Russian leader acted in the way he did is because he was angry about something that happened 30 years ago. And what a, horrible price the people of Ukraine are paying right now. And what a waste for us as individuals to hold a grudge for, 3 days, 30 days, 30 years. It's just not helpful.
Yeah, and it doesn't lead, I don't think, sometimes conflict can lead to growth, right? But it depends how it's handled. But all these issues that all of our countries have with each other. I mean, it's just creating, as you just mentioned in Ukraine, it's just creating all this additional drama and, affecting a lot of lives, big time. But I think the question would be, and this is not a question that I can answer, is, how can we get the leaders of the countries to utilize basic principles like the ones that we're talking about?
Yeah, so important. Well, I know your website is pretty dynamic, and there's some neat things going on. And in addition to the Unexplainable Adventures, the Power of Influence, there's other things that teachers and parents can find. Is that right?
Yeah. So we created this really cool. We call it a fun book. So the fun book is really created so the kids could sit with the parents after they read each chapter of the book. There's only about 5 chapters. And it has critical thinking questions that, again, we want the parents and their kids to answer, but also discuss, right? Because the kids are going to have different answers and the parents might have crossword puzzles. And I think my favorite part of the fun book is that once you finish reading the book, you have a mission every day for about 30 days. And every day, if you choose to accept that mission, as they say in the Tom Cruise movies, you can try one of the principles. You can set an objective to complete one of the things that you learn. So, for example, one of the missions is, find a kid at your school that doesn't have a lot of friends. Maybe he's like the lonely kid, or maybe he's the kid that's getting bullied. And go up to him or her, ask them their name, have a conversation with them, and become friends with them, right? And then the objectives continue to grow from there. And then there's also an audiobook. So we created our audiobook in the way of a movie, but without the visuals. So the audiobook has a ton of sound effects to make it extra entertaining for the kids, which is great to listen to if you're, going to school, going to grandma's house, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of fun. Now, what's next for you? Are you looking to create a series of Unexplainable Adventure books?
Yes, absolutely. So every book is going to revolve around one child who develops a superpower. And the superpower is tied into the focus or the principles of the book. So with Unexplainable Adventures, the main character, Memphis, middle school kid, he learns how to read people's minds. He develops the ability to read people's minds. So we're trying to figure out what the next superpower will be. And then it's going to be led by a female main character. Yeah, and our goal is every 2 years to come up, or every 2 to 3 years to continue to build the story, kind of modeled around Marvel. So how Marvel will have the Iron Man movie, and that's its own movie, and then they have the Captain America and then the Spider-Man. So what we want to do is the same, kind of something similar, and then later as we get to the future editions, to bring those characters together and create a bigger world.
Yeah. You kind of referred to a superpower. I don't know if you realize that might be fun to explore. The superpower of seeing people who are mostly invisible. And we're talking about, the lonely kid on the playground, maybe the homeless person, maybe the person who is poor at your school, whatever it might be. But there's loads and loads of those people that are living amongst us that we don't even see. And that would be a pretty incredible superpower to have.
I like that. Yeah. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Well, if I can plant the seed, hey.
The tree will grow.
Hey, Adrian, tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about Unexplainable Adventures, the Power of Influence.
Thank you, Jed. To learn more about the Unexplainable Adventures, Power of Influence, just go to unexplainableadventures.com. We're also on Instagram, which is at Unexplainable Adventures.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of Unexplainable Adventures, The Power of Influence, and our guest has been Adrian Gonzalez. Hey, Adrian, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Rachel Tomlinson. She'll be here to celebrate a blue kind of day. She'll be joining us from Perth in Australia. Really, really wonderful conversation. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic children's book, please do be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Find out how you can be a guest here on the podcast. Find out how you can submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel. You can also find out about our fantastic promotional packages that can celebrate your book with commercials here in the podcast, messages to our 75,000 plus social media followers, and have your book displayed on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Learn all about it by going to readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Adrian Gonzalez. Please be sure to check out Unexplainable Adventures, The Power of Influence. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.